Welcome to ESVN, the Emma Sports Vigeland Network Show. My name is Emma Vigeland, here to provide you with the sports news of the week. Please, if you haven't yet, rate us 5 stars on podcasts, Apple, Spotify, wherever you want to do that. And you can subscribe to the YouTube channel where we're going to be posting clips. We're streaming still live on the Majority Report channel, but we're posting clips over on youtube.com/ESVN show. So check that out, guys. And thanks once again to Ava Raisa, who did the music here. Just awesome, awesome stuff. We keep saying it, but I really couldn't appreciate it more. Another week come and gone in the NFL, and the New York Giants and the New York Jets are victorious.
Jets, Jets.
The G-Men, 2-0. How could anyone have foreseen this? And then they play their next 2 games at home against the Cowboys, who are not or without their starting quarterback, although they looked way better yesterday than I thought they would. That's a whole nother story. And then after that, the Bears, who better coached than I thought they would be this year, but is that enough to overcome their lacking of talent outside of, say, like the quarterback position and a few good players on their defense? I don't think so. Aaron Rodgers came back with a good performance last night. He still looks good. I mean, his style of play has changed since he was Mr. Gunslinger and the most accurate quarterback of all time in terms of like touchdown to interception ratio, despite not having significant talent at the receiver position on his team. As efficient as it gets at that position, and he's still efficient. He's just maybe not making the wow throws that he used to at the younger part, or when he was a bit younger in his career. But it tests me every year because, you know, or not every year, I should say. It tests me recently, my love for Aaron Rodgers as the player, because of his stupid vaccine obsessiveness and anti-vax garbage positions. But then you see how close he is with Randall Cobb and other players on his team. And you contrast that with someone like Tom Brady, who screams his head off at every person he plays with and seems to not really, at this point in his career, have any friends on his team other than Gronk, who's not there anymore. It's just, you know, to me, that's a contrast in terms of how a quarterback relates to their team. We'll also get to Tom Brady losing his mind and still winning against the Saints. But let's start with some WNBA news, because I mentioned that, you know, I want the show to be a leftist perspective on sports, and the WNBA still does not get the love, the investment that it deserves. Last night, or when was this, Bradley? It was yesterday, actually.
Last night.
Last night. The WNBA has crowned a champion, and it's the Las Vegas Aces. They are the first franchise to bring a championship to that city. The Golden Knights went to the Stanley Cup final, did not win. The Raiders just moved there, now 0-2. But the Las Vegas Aces, WNBA champions, and Becky Hammon, who was an assistant for a long time with the San Antonio Spurs, learned under the tutelage of Popovich, so couldn't learn from somebody better. She, in her debut season as a head coach, has won a WNBA championship. And if you heard about her in NBA circles all the time because of her talents as a assistant coach, but like there were still limitations in terms of, oh, we're not going to hire her to be the head coach of a NBA team because, you know, she's just been an assistant for so long. And that's not really stopped coaches from getting hired, assistant coaches from getting promoted and becoming head coaches in the NBA. It was just a bit of an excuse not to hire a woman. But she showed immediately right off the bat that she can coach the hell out of a team, and she brought the Aces to victory yesterday. They beat the Connecticut Sun in Game 4. Here she is a few days before this victory, speaking about her transition to the WNBA from the NBA, and if she felt passed over because of her gender in the NBA.
When you took this job, you talked about how one thing that appealed to you is the Aces saw you as a head coach right now, right away. I wondered this season, how much of this has been about proving all the people who didn't think that about you wrong? And also, do you think everyone in the NBA feels dumb for not hiring you?
It's about putting these ladies in a position to win a championship. That's been my focus. That's why I took this job. I felt they had the talent to do it. And I felt that I could build the relationships and build a culture in the right way for us to put ourselves in a position to be able to win a championship. Like I said before, we haven't won anything yet. All we did is take care of home court. We did what we were supposed to do. But I'm used to people not picking me. I don't know if you're aware. I just do me.
When you took this job.
So there's that. That's her kind of giving, brushing off that the tenor of that question ahead of the games. But the reality of the situation is that she's immensely qualified, and I hope one day that she'll be able to coach an NBA team, because yes, she's the highest paid WNBA head coach in the history of that league, and I'm happy to see that the WNBA, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I feel like over the past few years, it's started to gain some momentum, and it's begun to be taken a bit more seriously by the public. And that, as I'm critical of, these owners in the NBA not hiring someone like Becky Hammon, by the same token, like, the WNBA exists because partly the NBA decided that no, we are going to invest in the WNBA. We are going to do so, and we're going to do it year by year by year. And they don't publicize it enough. They don't probably invest in it enough. But it is a testament to the NBA, in my opinion, being light years ahead of the three other leagues in the way that it structures itself, that they continue to make that investment in the WNBA, and it's paying off. It's paying off. So I hope Becky Hammon gets another shot in the NBA, and other female candidates as well, in terms of being taken seriously as coaching candidates.
And it's just also a great moment for the Aces, because they have been one of the best regular season teams the last few years, and have never been able to translate that into winning a championship. They've had some playoff success, but they've always been vanquished before they've been able to win one. And it was a fantastic season for Chelsea Gray, the finals MVP, who was a had sterling point guard for them during this series, as well as Asia Wilson, who is like truly one of the biggest superstars in the league. MVP,
she was hilarious,
and she's so funny too. MVP, defensive player, regular season MVP, defensive player of the year during the regular season. And although she had a bit of one or two off games this season, Chelsea Gray more than made up for it. And it's just I'm very happy for all of them, and I'm very happy for Becky Hammon too, who got a great vote of confidence and a great little rallying speech a few games ago too, when Greg Popovich, her former mentor, was in attendance at one of the games as well.
Yeah, it doesn't get much better than Pop too, in terms of like just quality people coming out of the NBA. So love to see that. Now let's turn to football. I'm in probably 2 weeks, we're going to have somebody on to preview the Major League Baseball playoffs and talk a bit about hockey before it gets started. But September is football month by my money. So it's also the sport I think I know best. So here we go, deep into week 2 of the NFL. We're going to dive deep now. But let's start with Thursday. And for me, the major story to come out of Thursday Night Football from a business perspective for the NFL is that Thursday's broadcast was the first exclusive broadcast on Amazon Prime. And they made a point to show Jeff Bezos sitting right next to Roger Goodell, the commissioner of the NFL, cozily together, just chums hanging out, and Goodell looks miserable, and Bezos looks maniacal. So there they are hanging out, and I forget who said it, but it was one of the people employed by Thursday Night Football, which is now again going to be exclusively broadcast on Amazon Prime after Amazon outbid the cable providers and paid $1 billion for exclusive rights to Thursday Night Football. That will be more money for the owners, yes, but let's just make sure in the next CBA that this new TV and streaming money and also the new gambling money, which is coming in, trickles down to the players. We'll cross that bridge, I guess, when we come to it. But Amazon has been flirting with the NFL for a long period of time. It started simulcasting a handful of Thursday night games in 2017. Then it had its first exclusive rights game in 2020. That was between the Niners and the Cardinals. It was a Saturday game, deeper into the season, I believe. And last night, it was the first exclusive Thursday night football game. And as I mentioned, Amazon, they outbid the cable providers for it, and they have the money. So this is gonna begin like a new era in the consumption of the NFL. Jeff Bezos, in addition to talking, what? I
was just gonna say, let's see him commiserating with the normal folks.
This is a man of the people,
with the common masses.
He was not just in the box with Roger Goodell. He was down on the field, clutching that guy's hand.
Look at that extremely
or that person,
normal.
I can't see what their gender is from here, or don't want to assume it, but so tightly.
Look at that extremely normal hand grab.
That is how I do a handshake.
Me and him are holding hands because we are now friendly that I'm broadcasting football. Yeah. Then he has that weird laugh he does too now, kind of like Tucker Carlson-esque laugh.
Oh yeah, very put on. And I saw someone zoomed in on that photo of him clutching that person's hand and said, when your Amazon worker leaves 22 seconds before their shift is over, and Bezos personally drags them back to the warehouse. There are a lot of good memes going around about what that handhold would entail if it were to metaphorically represent Amazon's practices towards its laborers and its workers. But I digress. This is, I think, another just wrinkle in the budding relationship between Jeff Bezos and the NFL as team valuations continue to increase and, say the congressional probe into the misconduct of one Daniel Snyder continues to roll around. He's sniffing around Jeff Bezos. Now they have a really serious business relationship with the NFL, and apparently he was not interested, Bezos, in buying the Broncos, which were up for sale, and ended up going to the heir of the Walmart fortune, one of the Waltons, who now owns the Broncos and did not hire their current head coach, who is effing up. That we'll get to that in a little bit, but I think this is a part of an effort for Bezos to get even more involved in the NFL, and not just in terms of providing a streaming service for some of its programming, some of its games. I think Bezos does want to buy the Commanders. That's my guess, and I think he would be the owner of the Washington Post. He'd be the owner of the Washington Commanders, and the NFL would be thrilled to be able to, one, have an owner with that deep of pockets in its ranks. Although you see sometimes what that does for the whole league was pissed off when David Tepper ended up buying the Panthers and gave Matt Rule this enormous contract, which was set the precedent for other owners. Damn, maybe we have to pay first-time head coaches like that too. Bezos, I'm sure, would blow anybody out of the water with those contracts, since those are not subject to any salary cap issues. It's just which billionaire wants to decide to pay more. So I think he could definitely buy Washington. Selfishly, I hope he doesn't, because Dan Snyder is so incompetent that I would like my division rival to continue to be in the gutter. But at the same time, like the owners, they could excommunicate Snyder if it gets so bad because he hurts the shield, and that wouldn't be the real reason they do it. They do it because they have an even wealthier guy waiting in the wings who could take over and continue to raise the valuation of all of the teams just by his ownership and presence.
If it potentially meant that Dan Snyder would have some sort, like more, like some greater semblance of culpability in terms of like actually complying with a congressional subpoena, or if like it led to something moving in that investigation, or potentially like criminal charges or something, I would be all for it. But honestly, I don't think it's a bad guess, only because what more do these rich guys want than to have some massively bloated, enormous, too big to fail asset they can just park money in and no matter what happens, basically print it via ticket sales, season passes, concessions, concessions, merchandise.
TV deals.
It is literally he could
pay himself.
That's
with
right.
Thursday Night Football.
Absolutely. He could pay himself with Thursday Night Football, and also Bezos could the Commanders, if he were to buy them hypothetically, they could go 0-16 every year, and he would still be making billions of dollars every year. It simply wouldn't matter.
Yeah. And so I think that's his end goal. I'm not exactly sure, but just a reminder, though, that this is not what we want. I'm sure that if you're a Commanders fan, you might want it because he would spend all the money that's necessary to, I don't know, not have your stadium fall apart, to hire a head coach that is a hot new commodity, perhaps, to create facilities that are up to standard, and to maybe not, sexually harass your employees and create a culture of systemic racism and misogyny like that of Dan Snyder. But what we need more of is a push for collective ownership and models like what we have seen in Green Bay, which is an oasis in terms of its structure in an NFL that is just more popular than ever and making more money than it ever has.
More collective ownership who prioritizes wide receivers in the draft.
Well, yes. If we could write that into the bylaws, you also have to completely neglect skill position players. But the thing is like a collective that would be created in a modern era, there would be like a modern understanding of how to run a team that is not, in my opinion, connected to the structure of the Packers.
No, of course not.
They just fetishize their own process, and they have for so many years.
Yeah, I don't hold them accountable for freaking like Brian Gutekunst, who's just like actually, I think at this point, like A, trolling Aaron Rodgers, and B, like begging him to do something about it. Essentially, like how many more defensive guys and running backs in the second round or third round can I can I draft before you absolutely explode on me?
Before you just retire.
Yeah, retire, exactly. Retire.
Go on a 20-month ayahuasca retreat or something like that. So we'll see. But another thing I want to point out, though, is there is a problematic element to this going to Prime, in that now people have to spend additional money to get Prime if they don't have it. And it's not included in your cable package, sorry. And if there were reports of people in their 70s or older people who don't necessarily understand how to use streaming services struggling with this. I mean, that's always going to be the case with technology. I understand that. But I'm more concerned about the way in which this will likely affect the consumption of the product from regular people, because the NFL understands that they can gouge you, and people are going to watch a Thursday Night Football game, especially when the inaugural one on Prime is between Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes. So I'm a bit concerned about the increase in price that you need to access this product, but hopefully hopefully that gets ironed out. I have no hope for that, actually.
It makes sense, though, in terms of, I mean, these streamers have clearly understood now that there is, I mean, I don't think they didn't understand it before, but I think that they've just now, we're kind of seeing the groundwork that they were laying to secure these rights, because in terms of getting, exclusive or just, per game rights for, say now we have TNF on Amazon Prime, we have a few either Sunday night or Tuesday night. I don't remember the exact day for baseball, only on Apple TV Plus. Like, they're understanding that there are people who would probably, like, I can't imagine they would market this thing or greenlight this thing without thinking, hey, some people who might not have these streamers or these subscription services will actually pay for this distinct and individual service. But it's also, as with every streamer, every single oversaturated weird move that they're making is just to kill cable. It's just to murder cable. It's just to get everyone's reliance off of their cable box and cord cutting.
And eventually, they're gonna be selling bundles of streaming service packages, like in the same way that they sell cable, and then they'll gouge that.
AKA new cable. It's just gonna be how can we bundle all of the streamers that we have, AKA cable just for streaming.
What a joy.
We have so many new ideas in the marketplace of that is free market capitalism in the United States.
And I wanted to hate this Thursday night product, and I know that there were issues with the buffering and there was issues with the sound mixing, but what they did make a concerted effort to do was make the panel in the halftime panel and the talent that they have younger, fresh players. Ryan Fitzpatrick, right off of coming out of the league, who has a lot to say. Richard Sherman, recently in the league, has a lot to say, has his own podcast, and openly hates Russell Wilson, which we'll get into, tweeting the chef emoji about his bad play the other day. And then they poached Tony Gonzalez from, I forget which network was he on, Fox?
Yeah, it was either Fox or NBC, I don't remember. But also credit to them too, because honestly, Michael Smith, formerly of His and Hers on ESPN with Jamel Hill, who got totally railroaded along with Jamel Hill from ESPN. So like, happy to see him back working up and broadcasting. Taylor Rooks, who is honestly, I would say, arguably the best hire at Bleacher Report. She's one of the best interviewers for NBA players, NFL players, and I'm happy to see her on the sideline as well. So I agree. As much as we can of course critique the actual capital big tech aspect of it. At least they're actually trying to put a digestible and interesting product on
as opposed
screen.
to just like having fossils on there, like love to Phil Simms or love Boomer Esiason, cool, but like okay, maybe some young blood in here.
Like guys, Bill Cowher won a Super Bowl 17 years ago. It was a while ago.
Right. I don't need to hear from Tony Dungy ever again in the rest of my life.
Yeah.
It's a whole nother thing. And otherwise, the NBC product is so good.
Yeah,
like,
agreed,
why is Jason Garrett telling me?
Oh, that I find offensive though. I'm like.
Why are Tony Dungy and Jason Garrett talking to me about football? Like, I don't know. I don't care. I don't care.
At least Tony Dungy has won a Super Bowl. Like,
I guess
Garrett has not won anything. Garrett is an actively bad NFL head coach.
I find I understand Tony Dungy might be like a nice guy on a person-to-person level, but frankly, his politics seem really problematic, and I don't want that being elevated. But that's I guess. I'd guess if you did a little digging into some other NFL players, it wouldn't be so good either. So.
Yeah, I think that's don't search WinRed for any of your favorite or don't search the FEC records for any of your favorite NFL.
It kind of disqualifies the Mannings too.
Yeah, well, no question.
Speaking of the Mannings, so the Giants are 2-0. The most improbable of outcomes. I guess if you look at the quality of their opponents, and the Titans I still think are a decent team, you could have seen this coming, but given the way that even Daniel Jones has played in the first two games, if you were to look at the stat line and if you were to look at the quality of plays that he's making, which is fairly poor, if you were to look at the fact that he seems to be unable to see anything in like the mid-tier levels of where his receivers are, he'll either check it down or throw a bomb. His intermediate vision along the linebacker level at this stage in his career, to me, it's just he's a bit of a dead man walking, and the Giants are going to try to draft a quarterback next year. But he did, and what makes him so maddening is that for the most part it's pretty bad, but then he'll have some really good plays which is what he did to seal the game. He ran up the middle and slid, and that's what allowed the Giants to run out the clock and ended up winning that game. And then he had another play that ended up getting called back due to an offensive PI on David Sills, who has the audacity to wear number 13, which I just, like, I find to be an interesting choice, but whatever. It's the same, like, I don't know why Cam Akers just switched to 3. I mean, Odell could be going back to the Rams, dude. But I love Odell, so I'm 100% biased. Yeah. It's just like, or who's that guy on Kansas City who's wearing 10 the season after Tyreek Hill? It's just like, give it a breather. I find that it might be like McKinnon or something. That's beside the point. But Daniel Jones did have a good play there where he stepped up and he kind of evaded the rush and he threw it to Kadarius Toney and it was this big gain and then it was called back due to offensive PI. But really what has been the star of the Giants, or the factor that has allowed the Giants to win these games so far has been the creative play calling by Wink Martindale. And yes, Mike Kafka and Brian Daboll have been really good on the offensive side, even though I thought that they were a little cute doing like a wildcat in the red zone, which is just not for me. I've heard other Giants reporters and analysts talk about that they didn't like that play either. I did not. But they're doing the best with what they can, and the Panthers were just like stacking the box the whole game, so it was really difficult for Saquon to get anything going, and he wasn't really able to. But he served as quite an effective decoy on a play that went to running back Gary Brightwell, who was a late round pick last year, and mostly kind of just is on the edge of the roster altogether. But he was a decoy. They put multiple backs back there, and he acted like a fullback and was able to have a really nice gain and almost actually took off for longer because he has better speed than the fullback. He's just kind of like a more sturdy, larger running back player. So their understanding the understanding of their players and their offense has been really good. And I think that despite the fact that their 2 top pass rushers have been out with injury in Azeez Ojulari and Kayvon Thibodeau, and we still don't know what Kayvon's going to be because he hasn't played yet and he's a rookie, but at least we can assume he will be one of their top 2 pass rushers. And in the game, Leonard Williams, who's their best defensive player, although Adoree Jackson's been having a very strong start to the year, we can get to that, Leonard Williams left with injury, and yet they still were really effective on defense, and that's, in my opinion, because of the creativity of Wink Martindale. The Giants have, the past 2 defensive coordinators have really gotten what they can out of a very, relative to the rest of the NFL, a fairly untalented bunch. I love Patrick Graham still, and will always root for him.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, speaking to Graham, is like, you could have, if there had been an anticipated like defensive fall off for the Giants as a result of Graham leaving, given the personnel and given the injuries, like you said, it wouldn't have surprised me at all. So for them to still be looking pretty sharp, and also for this roster, who is not some of these names like you're talking about, David Sills, undrafted guy from 2019, Gary Brightwell, not a relatively heralded player, besides take Ojulari, take Leonard Williams, and take Thibodeau out of the equation. There's not a whole lot of stars on this team. James Bradbury's not even there anymore.
Nope.
So this is a team that is actively being coached up and buying in and playing well. And listen, I understand that the Titans and the Panthers are not the Chiefs and the Chargers, but a win is a win. You could go out and lay an egg in those games, and they did not.
They didn't, and they had to start because not only is Bradbury gone, Adoree Jackson's been starting at cornerback 1. He's had a pretty strong start. He's injury prone, but he's fast, and that's the thing that stupid fucking Gettleman never understood. It's like he drafted DeAndre Baker. To be a corner in the modern NFL, it's not about being big and physical. It's about being able to run with guys like Tyreek Hill. No one can really run with that kind of guy, but you got to have someone who can be close, and Adoree Jackson has the speed to do that, so that was a decent free agent signing. But they had to start Cordell Flott, who was a rookie and who did not have a very good camp, in place of Aaron Robinson because he had appendicitis, and so he actually did okay. He gave up the DJ Moore touchdown. But other than that, the Giants played a solid, if not frustrating game because they only scored one touchdown and the rest of this was Graham Gano kicking field goals. But, I actually picked the Giants to win this game in the small wagers that I made earlier because Ben McAdoo's the offensive coordinator and Matt Rule is the head coach. So, they're more talented than the Giants, I think. I think, on defense, they have Derek Brown and J.C. Horn is back, and they have some more pieces on defense that I think I would probably take over some of the Giants' young pieces at this point. But
Brian Burns.
Yeah, right. Speedy pass rusher Brian Burns.
But they are just coached by they are poorly coached, poorly constructed, and I can see them losing a game like this and losing the way they did to the Browns last week. I could literally see this being one of the worst teams in the NFL.
And the
vibes are off. The vibes are bad.
The vibes are really bad, and they've been bad since they were flailing trying to find a quarterback for the past 2 years. Just take anybody. We'll take anybody.
And to your point about J.C. Horn, as much as I'm very happy to see him back, and he was definitely in the draft last year, considered one of the highest graded press man corners in the 2021 draft. The big knock on him is that he's pretty handsy. He would draw a lot of penalties. And what did he do? He drew a few holding penalties while covering.
Yeah.
So it's that's not super encouraging either. So
I would be really, really unhappy if I were a Panthers fan with the way that Tepper has managed his ownership, which has been frenetic and desperate and undisciplined, and the team looks the same, except honestly they look lifeless. And DJ Moore, I still feel like is completely underutilized throughout the whole offense. So it's just a weird direction that team has taken. And they will be in the market for a quarterback in the draft too. We mentioned the game. What I mentioned Russell Wilson off the top. And I want to play a game with Bradley about who's going to get fired first after I talk about this game. But the Broncos defeated the Texans in a game that was way too close for comfort. I am surprised at how bad Russell Wilson looks. I thought he would get right after last game, which was obviously going to be emotional, going back to Seattle. And the fans were all up in his ears, just screaming their heads off, the 12th man up there in Seattle. And I thought, they'll be at home. They'll get right. They've got talent. They've got a running back who seems to just get chunks of yardage every time he touches the ball, but we've decided we're not going to use him at the goal line in Javonte Williams. This play here where Russell Wilson ended up getting this ball batted, and this is a screenshot of it here, with Javonte Williams in the middle of the end zone. I was screaming at my television. One, because
look how wide open he is.
Yes.
There is, as Ben Solak from the Ringer says, one of my favorite NFL analysts. You guys should follow him if you haven't already. He says Javonte is at least one end zone letter away from the closest defenders. Man, look at the two guys. Look at the two guys bookending him. And they are nowhere near him.
Russ was padding, looking over there, looking back there. I screamed at my TV, Javonte's open. I was flipping out. One, because, might be some fantasy implications involved there. But, it was just so obvious. Look at him right there. And he got the ball batted because he can't, his vision in the center of the field is way worse than I anticipated that it would be.
Where are his eyes there? That's the thing. Is and also, I'm not. Of course, I don't know their playbook, so I'm not sure exactly what read that would be. But how is he not making that read? How is that not? You see that and you instantly put the ball in that guy's hands. He's right there.
He's right there, and
He's in front of his face.
and was waving his arms back and forth. And so, I mean, it was like, I don't. They ended up winning this game, but I feel so grossed out by the Broncos and the other. And it's not just Russell Wilson's play, which has not been good. This sequence where the Broncos are down against the Texans by a field goal at home after getting embarrassed by the Seahawks. It's 9-6 late in the third quarter. This is how this game was going and how little offense from this offensive head coach and the let Russ cook Russell Wilson, who said, just let me out of Seattle and I'll tear the league up as long as you just let me run the offense. It's 9-6. It's late in the third quarter. Javonte Williams, as I mentioned, has been their best player on offense. They go for some like goofy run design play on 3rd and 1, and they lose yardage. Okay, it's 4th and 2. We're up in Denver. Elevation's good. Kicks are easier to make here. 4th and 2. Field goal. Let's tie the game. It takes Nathaniel Hackett so long to decide what he's going to do that they get a delay of game and it pushes them out of field goal range and they have to punt. Like, a reminder that Rob Walton bought the Broncos after Nathaniel Hackett was hired. That does not portend well for him. And if I were Walton, I don't know what I would say. I mean, they end up getting the win, but like, these game management decisions are just basic things. And he messed this up last week in Seattle. What was that on the field goal? He had another delay of game issue last week, right? What happened again?
Well, so if you'll remember, because they had the last minute kind of essentially 2-minute drill, and inexplicably it looked as if Russ should have just taken a timeout.
Yeah.
And they essentially burned 25 seconds of game clock to take, as well as play, as well as the actual time in the quarter, to like 20 seconds, only to take a timeout and then bring Brandon McManus on to take a 62-yard field goal, that 60-yarder he's never made in his career,
in a hostile environment, 64 2 yards off the record set last year by Justin Tucker, who was by leaps and bounds essentially the greatest kicker of all time. Yeah.
So then they missed it and lost the game.
I don't even understand what this guy's going. He needs some sort of like clock management person in his ear. He really does. But
and also, if you'll remember, I think I don't know if we talked about this already, Emma, from last week. Hackett literally went on record to the media a few days later saying it was the wrong choice.
Yeah.
That bringing McManus out.
But he didn't learn anything.
Yeah, clearly.
And that, and paired with how Russell Wilson looks, this guy's supposed to be an offensive head coach, and I had
Aaron Rodgers guru from Green Bay.
Yeah, Rodgers speaks very highly of him. Again, this is just like also my Aaron Rodgers agenda. Aaron Rodgers made this offense look good, but no, that can't even be it, because Nathaniel Hackett took Blake Bortles to the AFC Championship game as his OC. There's something off with Russell Wilson's play right now, or maybe this is just who he is at this point in his career. We don't know yet. TBD. After he just got that massive contract, like, God, I'd be holding my breath if I were a Broncos fan. But I think it's a combo with that, and also like Hackett is unable to manage the game and the offense at the same time.
But the issue even beyond Hackett's coaching missteps, and also I must say too, a big problem beyond his own in-game coaching decisions and tactics is the fact that the team does not look disciplined either.
No.
Like they have one thing that I think people don't. I'm not saying people don't realize this, because I don't think it's that groundbreaking or anything like that, but as much as it can be frustrating to, this guy shouldn't have made a false start penalty, committed a neutral zone infraction, committed OPI, DPI. You know what that also reflects on? The coaching staff. And that starts at the top. If the team is not disciplined, if the team is not ready to mitigate the clear and present advantage that is just offsetting penalty yardage from stupid penalties, you're going to lose the game, or you're just going to look sloppy even if you do win the game like they did today, like they did on Sunday. It is as much a reflection on Nathaniel Hackett and that coaching staff that those guys are still making boneheaded penalties like that in week 2 as it is about the players themselves.
So week 2, who do you think gets fired first, Matt Rule or Nathaniel Hackett? And let me remind you of the circumstances of these two situations. Matt Rule, year 3, rich-ass owner, gave him way too big of a contract coming out of college. He'd never proven a thing in the NFL. It's been a disaster, partly because of that same owner's obsession with getting a franchise quarterback and, like, you know, granting Sam Darnold's 5th-year option right off the bat. And then let's also trade for Baker Mayfield. And we're also in on Deshaun Watson.
And PJ Walker and Cam Newton. It's like a quarterback carousel.
And Matt
Corral. Who's out for the season.
So, like, this is David Tepper's own doing in part, but is a billionaire owner going to recognize his own fallibility in a situation like this?
But also,
No.
Good coaches make the most of less than ideal situations.
Yes.
And I think as much as the team schematically and organizationally and in terms of personnel might not look like it makes sense, there have been more difficult situations for head coaches that they've made the most of and been successful with. Like, it's not super acceptable that Rule has talents like Christian McCaffrey. While he's obviously a huge injury concern whenever he plays, he's still Christian McCaffrey. DJ Moore, and then also on the other side of the ball, like we were talking about, Brian Burns, and so a few pretty, I mean, Brian Burns especially, 24, 25-year-old guy, an incredible pass rusher. I mean, you have to be able to maximize the plus guys on your team. And if you're not doing it, that's on you. That's on Matt Rule.
Yeah. I mean, and so to my point though, right, I don't think Tepper is going to be able to understand his own role in creating the situation or reckon with it, given like just billionaire ego. So that, plus now the other situation, Nathaniel Hackett, hired by a previous regime before current ownership took over. Disastrous game management, discipline issues in the first 2 games. Really low scoring efforts from an offensive head coach with a quarterback that was just paid a ton more money in a new contract. Like, who gets out of town first?
So my answer to this question, between the two, is I would say, because beyond the actual flubs or gaffes or lack of success or lack of a track record, I think what makes owners react the most is bad press. In the sense that I think that, for example, Urban Meyer was going to stick around, apparently, according to the Khan family, until it simply was too much to bear, and it almost even looked like potentially...
Cost.
Yeah, it almost even apparently looked like the locker room might frickin' mutiny if the guy continued to be their head coach. So the reason I say and get all that being said is because I think with a new ownership group, like you said, who didn't hire Hackett, if this stuff keeps happening where it's like you spent this much money on Russell Wilson, didn't even employ him in the first game that he's playing to like try and win the game, it's emblematic of wasted resources, wasted assets, wasted money, and the fact that he's also kind of showing his ass as not being able to kind of like keep a team disciplined or functional or playing quality ball. And also, I understand when people would say it's 2 games, but at the same time, it's 2 games out of 17. Football in its essence, because of how short the season is and you play once a week, it's a small sample size any way you slice it. If this team and this ownership group and this front office had way bigger designs on playoff success and way bigger expectations, they're not going to cut Russ, they're not going to cut Russ or try and trade Russ, the guy that they spent $250 million on. They're going to fire their coach.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Rule first. I'm gonna go with Rule's the first to go.
Can I?
Because his seat was the hottest going in.
If I may, though, can I give my answer that does not
Yeah,
include either of these guys?
Put yourself on camera. We're trying to do this.
Should we debut the Bradley
we
cam?
should debut Bradley Cam. Oh, there he is.
Look who it is. Hello, chat.
Oh,
It's me.
man, diabolical.
Yeah, no, me and it's a love-hate relationship with me and all my boys, me and all my squad in the chat.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. So my third party option would be Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah.
Because I know the Cardinals won this game in a kind of spectacular fashion, but they only won because of Kyler Murray's heroics. They did not win because of any sort of stellar coaching decision from Cliff Kingsbury.
Well,
their entire offense, essentially, even last year and this year, has kind of been, hey, Kyler, run around and see if you can do something. Which he literally did for that 2-point conversion. He just ran around for 20 yards until the defensive ends got tired on the Raiders. They just were like,
no, that wasn't even the 2-point conversion yet, right?
Oh, sorry, it might have been the actual.
It was the drive to get down.
Yes.
The 2-point conversion was another incredible play. But the reason Kingsbury might stick, I think, is going to stick around the longest of these three is because of this intrinsic and the dynamics of Kyler Murray having the same agent as his head coach, them being tied together from back to college.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And
that's a good point.
This entire offense being in his vision, and surrounded by just Kyler Murray as being the centerpiece of all of this. That is why I think Kingsbury will be the last to go. But after last week, I thought that the Cardinals were dead in the water, and I thought he was going to be he was definitely gone. So
my issue, the thing that I think, if I'm not mistaken, from last year or the year before, Roger Sherman over at The Ringer pointed out in one of his winners and losers columns for the NFL is that Cliff Kingsbury is someone who is basically was basically seen as a revolutionary when he was hired at Texas Tech, and he was basically seen as a revolutionary when he was hired at the Cardinals. The issue with this revolutionary guy is he's revolutionary for 8 games. Everyone figures out what is so revolutionary about him, and then he never changes anything.
Never adjusts.
If you look at the splits from his first few seasons at Texas Tech, they were on fire.
Yeah.
First 8 or so games of the season. Second half, they lost almost every game.
Yep.
Same thing with the Cardinals. The Cardinals, I think, went in his first year, I think 3-0, 4-0,
they collapsed
and then
in the end of the year.
Weeks 12 through 17, 12 through 16, or whatever it was at the time, they just did not. They don't make any adjustments. People figure you cannot be a successful NFL team and be so predictable that they can that other teams can essentially telegraph your every move.
You have to keep some things in your back pocket for that time period, and then also adjust your system.
And window dressing is so important in the sense of you need to, in terms of if your offense is motionless, if your offense, if every guy is supposed to be essentially, if every guy ostensibly is running out, if every guy is essentially running a slant, if every guy is essentially, chip blocking or going out into the flat, and there's no misdirection whatsoever, you're done. You're dead. You cannot be a successful NFL team anymore. It can't. The other team cannot have your game plan basically on their wrist. It's just not. It's not sustainable.
Nope. All right, we're gonna take a quick break, guys, because I want to call into the phone system, which I forgot to do. Yeah, and then we will get into the 3 comeback games. We'll talk a bit more about the Cardinals, although we did flesh that out pretty well there. The Jets, Jets, Jets.
And the
Jets.
I wish I was at this game in Cleveland, not at the one at home.
Although, if you were in Cleveland, you might have seen some unsavory things in the parking lot.
Oh yes, I think we'll get into that a little bit as well.
And then we will also talk about the other comeback game, which was, let me quickly glance over my note. Oh, the Dolphins. The Dolphins defeating the Ravens.
Oh my God,
yeah.
2-0.
2-0, rise up.
Vindicated.
No. All right, we'll get into that in a little bit. Jason Miles of This Is Revolution was chirping me on Twitter about Tua, but yeah, we'll get into it in a sec. I'm gonna open up the phone lines. Be right back, guys. we are back, and we are in the phone lines. There is Bradley. Say hello.
Hello.
Let me read some IMs really quickly, and then we can get back into some of the games. David from Colorado, man, us Broncos fans aren't effing around this year. We've had a do-nothing offense forever, even to a lesser extent during the Manning era. They rely on their defense and McManus to bail them out. This reminds me of the Kyle Orton days. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Oh man, I'm sorry, but hopefully it
Kyle
improves. I mean, Russell Wilson is more talented than Kyle Orton. But perhaps it needs to change at the head coaching position. Perhaps it needs time to gel. But for now, it's not looking amazing. Emma's Network. Emma, as someone who's a paid subscriber to MR and a longtime advocate of your passion and individuality you bring to MR, I beg you to please review the presentation format of this show. It is excruciatingly boring, and my head goes bonkers when I see you are getting no actual support in the graphics department. Do you need volunteers? I am happy to help, but please, please, please don't hurt your sports journalists inside you by continuing to do this. I don't know what I'm doing, but you know, I'm using the studio that we have, and we're working on it. Thank you for the feedback.
Yeah, as always. I wonder if this is the person from the last week too.
Yeah.
We're not gonna do a slideshow every week.
Yeah, we didn't do that this week.
Yeah, we're just
just chatting, and you guys realize we can't show highlights, like not even.
Yeah, no, I mean, of course, I would love if we were in the futuristic hellhole that is Bristol, Connecticut, with ESPN's
right, exactly,
access to clips and highlights and stuff. But
anyway,
gotta make do.
Josh in Omaha, your pick sucked. I hope you're happy. We are not. They did suck this week. I really came down to earth. But I did call that Jaguars game.
Did any of ours hit, or did your
my Jags hit?
But all three of mine did not.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay, cool.
And I think my prediction about the Jaguars finishing second in the division is not looking so bad anymore, and they could win the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's
worst division in football.
That's the thing, though. Of course, is like it's totally possible because who else could really take that wild card spot potentially from them, or win the division, or like you said, or win
the
win
wild card in the AFC is going to be like
that might be a
Chargers.
That's right.
Cardinals.
Yeah.
You know, anyone out of the AFC.
But
North.
frankly, the Colts are looking terrible.
Well, Matt Ryan looks bad.
And I might have to eat crow on that because I was way more optimistic about what he would be able to do for them than frankly you are, but also just like going in. I mean, I understand some people were like, other older quarterbacks have had some success. Like, Philip Rivers literally had that kind of success on the Colts when he was like 39. But they are not looking cohesive or like particularly threatening in any way.
Yeah, it's that offensive line is kind of like not dominating in the way that it did before. And honestly, Matt Ryan looks way worse than I even thought that he would.
And way worse than even like last year in Atlanta. Like I just don't even. They're one of the teams besides like maybe the Broncos, but like that I've just been genuinely surprised by how poorly they've performed these first 2 weeks.
Yeah, 100%. David from Jamaica. Hey, Bradley, Emma, my first time watching this new show, and I must say you're both doing a fabulous job and love the new graphics this episode. Though the first episode was a bit mad, the second turned out to be worse, and now the third week episode is giving me the vibes of a canceled Netflix show. Okay, this is the same person, and this is not Dave from Jamaica.
It's not Dave.
Please explore other sports like soccer, tennis, and badminton? No.
Well, we did talk about tennis in the first episode. We talked about Serena Williams.
Mark says 84 yards measured by advanced stats on the 2-point conversion of how he ran, how far he ran.
Yeah, that's insane.
Insane.
That is like laterally too.
Dan from Columbus. I feel like Bradley has to have already overtaken Brendan a number of times on camera stats, perhaps.
Yeah, but Brendan had a nice one at the end where he got his key to the commissary with Sam.
He did have
iconic
that.
photo.
He did. Vermont Ben, will Judge hit 62, and do either of you find that storyline compelling? A little bit. I mean, we're Mets fans over here, but
I think I do. I think it's almost certain he will, and I love Shohei Ohtani as much as the next guy. I think he's one of the greatest baseball players ever, just to be playing at that high level at both, to be as a pitcher and a hitter.
Yeah.
But it's got to go to Aaron Judge, the MVP award in the American League. I mean, he's most likely going to break Roger Maris's record. He just tied Babe Ruth's single season home run record. And the Yankees played like complete garbage in the month of August, and he essentially was the only person that is still keeping them in contention in their division, and like he has to win it. I mean, he's the best player in baseball. There's really no conversation to me in my opinion.
And I mean, honestly, are like voters gonna get tired of giving MVP to
Mike Trout,
to Angels players who like are just like on an island trying to survive despite being the most talented in the league? It's, I mean, poor Angels. Iowa, what would it take for you to believe Tua would be a good quarterback? Because obviously 469 yards and 6 touchdowns doesn't do it. All right, let's get into that. Combative chat today, for sure. So
it's sports talk.
the Dolphins came back. And they defeated the Ravens. It was an unbelievable game, and a really entertaining game. From the Ravens side of things, Wink Martindale, left the team, and part of that was due to the fact that Martindale was like, I mean, there was just a difference in defensive philosophy. Martindale's insanely aggressive now on the Giants, and he's kind of ideologically committed to man coverage. And I think they were trying to do a bit of man and zone against these two insanely talented receivers. But whatever they did was not working because Tyreek Hill broke open multiple times, wide open, on 2 touchdowns at 2 touchdowns, nearly 200 yards, and
there were a few like
scrimmage.
There were a few like two of the touchdowns. I can't remember if it was both Hill and Waddle or two or Tyreek. I don't remember exactly the breakdown. 2 of them were from like incredibly busted coverage by the Ravens. Like Patrick Queen, who should not be dropping into coverage so much, as well as Kyle Hamilton, who's in his second game, so I understand. And Chuck Clark as well, who is a pretty veteran safety. A few of them, they just got absolutely burned by Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle.
It's a mismatch because, one, they're the two. I mean, it's clear who the top 2 receiver duos in the NFL are, in my opinion.
And also top 2 like fastest skill position guys potentially.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like I before the season said Jamar Chase and T Higgins, but I think I'm going to amend it. I think Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle.
I see where you're coming from with that, but I think the difference maker is because it creates such a field expander for the Dolphins to have both Hill and Waddle. Like, you have one of those guys, the speed becomes an issue immediately. If you have 2 of them, the game plan makes it so that either A, you are basically trying to swarm those 2 guys, leaving other people open, or you don't, and you run the risk of one of them just torpedoing you down the sideline or across the field.
Yeah, and the Ravens just were not prepared for this, and they were so lackadaisical sitting back in coverage, and the receivers just Hill and Waddle just tore them up to come back. And this is the thing, guys. Mike McDaniel, he is a revelation. He is that dude.
I can't believe it.
And I mean, I love everything about him. I love that he's kind of an awkward nerd, but also beloved by the team. I love the way that the plays are designed. It is a perfect fit for the skill set right now of Tua Tagovailoa, because Tua has good accuracy on these short throws. And if you just throw it to Tyreek, Waddle, they can go to the house. Okay, to the question that does this vindicate Tua, and do I think he's going to be the quarterback of the future? No, I'm sorry, guys. It's one game, and I don't overreact to one game. I use the preponderance of evidence in front of me. Tyreek Hill had to come back to catch the ball on one of those touchdowns. It was because of Tyreek Hill's speed that was a touchdown, and his skill as a receiver. And a lot of these other plays, the throw to Gesicki in the end zone was really good. So good on Tua, and he has the accuracy in those short throws.
But Gesicki still went up there and got it.
Yeah.
Because Gesicki is also another freak athlete, and I didn't even know this when I was listening to my favorite, one of my other favorite NFL shows, Robert Mays and Nate Tice's Athletic NFL show, football show. Gesicki is a former volleyball player.
Yeah.
So he's like I mean, listen, he's not a great blocker, but he's an amazing athlete. He's fast and he can get up there for catches. So like I'm not again, this is not Tua had a great day, but he was also very much magnified by the skills of the personnel around him.
Yes. I mean, and so people will say so is every system. Really though? Like there are quarterbacks that milk the most out of the systems that are given to them. One of them was on the other side of the ball. The other is someone like Aaron Rodgers. The other is someone like, I don't know, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen. I mean, Tua played really well. Do I think this is gonna have success once people have more tape on some of this when it comes playoff time and when it's cold weather and Tua's unable to get the ball downfield and there's more of an understanding that we have to protect short to intermediate passes? Like, I don't have faith that that's the case.
But
with
also,
this quarterback.
but also, let me posit this as well. And I'm not comparing these two quarterbacks. I'm just saying that there is precedent for some quarterbacks, their game being elevated and magnified and augmented by a coach that appeals to their strengths and maximizes those strengths and doesn't try to put their philosophy onto them.
Yeah.
Tries to fit them within map their philosophy onto them, but not where it's overbearing to the point where it's a square peg in a round hole. And two, maximize those skills of that quarterback with the talent around him. And the person who did this before with way more unheralded quarterback was Mike McDaniel's former boss, Kyle Shanahan, with
Jimmy G.
And not only with Jimmy Garoppolo, with Nick Mullins when the
Yes.
49ers were in a huge, they had a huge issue because not only was, I think, Jimmy out, but then CJ Beathard, their other backup, was out. So Nick Mullins had to come into the game and literally posted the highest or one of the highest passer ratings of all time.
Yeah.
In NFL history.
And right, and this is the system, guys. This is why these people are brilliant. The minds from the Shanahan tree. And Ayuk and Deebo Samuel are not as good of a duo as what we see with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. The two of those guys are perfecting some of that system where these guys are coming out of the backfield and doing these sweeps, and then you'll get the occasional deep shot. The scheme for that is tailored for these receivers and the quarterback, and you can 100% win with Tua. I like Tua as the person. I'm happy that they're having success. Do I think they would be more dangerous if, say, Lamar Jackson doesn't sign a long-term deal with the Baltimore Ravens and decides to go down to Florida where he used to live and grew up?
Yeah, I'm probably taking the guy on the other side of the field over Tua, most likely in that situation.
Are you being honest, Tuanon, and you're saying that you wouldn't take Lamar Jackson? Lamar Jackson, I know they lost.
He played so well. He still played so well.
God, I will defend this dude to
that 57-yard run
end of time. It wasn't even. It was over 70 yards.
Oh, it was over 70.
Before that, he wasn't even running. He was standing in the pocket, throwing dimes,
great passes,
dicing them up in the pocket. And the Greg Roman system is not good passing wise, like in terms of the scheme.
It's like not really built for that. I feel like, right? It's more of
and contrast it to the way that it's set up by Mike McDaniel,
right,
where it's like, okay, this is really quarterback friendly. Lamar is balling. Lamar is a great quarterback, and there's still this narrative out there that he can't play in the pocket. Bullshit. Watch those games and watch the needle throws that he threw with pinpoint accuracy, deep balls into the end zone. He can stretch the field because he has the arm strength, he has the touch, and he has the smarts to understand what he's seeing on the field. He puts balls in places that, like, it's top 5 quarterback stuff. It really is. And if he was in a system where there was a bit more talent around him and it did emphasize the pass game more, I think he'd get more respect. But part of it is because, honestly, because he's black. But like, it just, I really loved the way Lamar played yesterday. And they don't even have the run game right now. They're still missing J.K. Dobbins. They're missing Ronnie Stanley. They're missing their right tackle. Like, it is not the same run system in terms of what they can rely on for Lamar Jackson. Lamar put the passing game on his back and he drove, he created a big lead, and then it was the Ravens defense's fault, in my opinion.
And another example of kind of like an analogous to Tua, not and again, I'm not even saying this to say that a guy like Nick Mullins, the person I'm about to mention, is a equivalent talent to Tua. I'm just saying that there are times where players' talent is completely inflated by the circumstances around them. Is when Jared Goff went down with that injury, I think in 2020 or 2019, and John Wolford came in as their backup. John Wolford was like the first player in his rookie start to like throw for over 250 yards and rush for 70 or 80 or something like that. John Wolford is not like a dual threat quarterback. He's not somebody that is going to be starting for any team.
Yep.
But Sean McVay knew how to maximize this guy's relatively limited skill set, and it paid dividends for one game. I don't even think necessarily that Tua won't be starting next year for a team. I actually do think he's good enough to be either a bridge starter or a low-level starter for another team that needs a quarterback. I just think ownership, the front office, and Mike McDaniel himself will see what he has with that team in Miami and can understand what will be unlocked with a better quarterback.
You guys are in a great position, Dolphins fans. You are going to be winning with Tua right now. But my advice, and if I were a Dolphins fan, would be to set your sights on a free agent quarterback acquisition or a trade for Lamar Jackson if he's franchise tagged next year, because he seems like, I saw he liked that picture of him in the Dolphins uniform. And I'd be sad to see him leave the Ravens, because I love the Ravens, and I referred to them as my AFC mistress before. I root for them. I love the way they do business. But man, the Ravens, the Dolphins roster on the whole is better than the Ravens right now, and they have a top 5 roster in the NFL. And to have Lamar Jackson on their team, I'm thinking you should be thinking Super Bowl right away if that's the case. But I don't even know, they don't have their first round pick from that tampering situation next year, so that might make things difficult if they want to tag and trade. But yeah, big Lamar Jackson fan over here. All right, let's get into the Jets.
Woo!
Do it. Do the chant.
Jets, Jets. That is the Jets' first win of the season.
Hey, Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
He's one of the... how many passing yards did he have last game?
He had over 300 yards and no interceptions.
Wow.
Joe Flacco's back, baby.
Hashtag elite.
27-year-old Joe Flacco is back.
37.
No, I'm saying from when he was in 2012 when they were 2013 when they won the Super Bowl.
Yes. I'm slow on the uptake.
37-year-old Joe Flacco is now looking 10 years younger.
So what was that experience like? Like, put up this win probability thing that we there's graphics in terms of like the analytics about how games are shaping out, and the Jets recovered an onside kick. I can't remember the last time I saw live an onside kick being recovered in the NFL, because it's become so difficult to do so. But with less than 2 minutes left, the Browns had a 99.9% win probability. And this is, Jordan Strax says this is one of the worst losses in NFL history when you add that all up. And they recovered the onside kick and they won. What was that like, Bradley, witnessing that?
Well, so I had responsibilities on Sunday, so I couldn't watch the entire game. I was actually at my nephew's baptism, so I was having another holy experience that wasn't watching the Jets on Sunday. But I was able to see. I was obviously following the game, not in church. I was not looking at my phone in church. If my fiance is listening, but. We were at a restaurant for the celebration afterwards, and the game was on one of the TVs. So I was trying to be respectful and also participate with my familial duties while also watching the game. And I started watching when Garrett Wilson, right after the onside kick was recovered, and Garrett Wilson got the second touchdown, which was he ran a beautiful route, easy throw for Flacco, and then saw the. That was basically what happened to put them up 1 point, put them up 31-30.
Was that when he got in the kid's face?
Yeah, it was probably it was. I think it was the second one. He really, as the former Ohio State product, he was really giving it to the Browns fans.
Yes.
In
My
in
God.
the front row. So. And the biggest thing for me, and this is like the biggest like Jets sicko thing for me, is that as much as I'm like ecstatic to see Garrett Wilson playing the way he is, he was our second first round pick in this draft. His route running, his speed, his catch radius, everything that was advertised for him coming out of Ohio State and into the draft, he was exhibiting in that game yesterday. I mean, it's amazing to see. We haven't had a guy like this that's even exhibited or even elicited this much excitement or this much like potential or expectation in so long. And so take that all away. Like even the fact that Flacco looked not only like a different quarterback than week 1 against the Ravens, he was like just doing normal quarterback stuff. I'm not even looking to him as anything more than the begrudging bridge for me, because I don't even want him to play. I want one of the younger backups to be playing and not him.
Yeah.
But the fact that he was able to throw for over 300 yards and multiple touchdowns with no interceptions at 37 years old as a backup for the Jets, and was remarkable to see all its own. But the biggest thing for me was that the game ended with an interception, and it was from Ashton Davis, who is a safety out of Cal, who was drafted in 2020, which for many Jets fans and analysts alike, and me included, given how everything has panned out with that draft class, for the most part, the entirety of it was a bust, because Mekhi Becton has not been consistently healthy in 2 seasons. He was supposed to be our linchpin left tackle, and it just hasn't been going that way. And Ashton Davis was part of that class, and he really was kind of seen as another bust, someone who kind of could have been considered with his speed and his rawness, that if he was developed properly, could have been a really great safety for the team, but just really hadn't been exhibiting any of that. It kind of been almost a negative on most of his playing last season. On the one snap that he played this game, he got the game-sealing interception. So it was just like, for me, for someone who had been holding on hope for really wanting this guy to experience some success in the league, I'm just happy that even though he was kind of iced out and wasn't even playing in rotationally this game, he came in and made like the biggest play of the game and sealed a win that I did not think that this team was going to get yesterday.
And they need that, given what we've said about their schedule, and just like to tide them over until Zach Wilson returns.
I screamed so loud in the restaurant that I startled a waitress as she walked by me.
That is very unholy of you.
It was bad.
God loves the
At least I
Jets.
wasn't in the church.
Well, I mean,
I almost started crying also.
Oh.
I could not believe it. And the fact that the Giants and the Jets.
I almost started crying last week when Saquon got that 2-point
Oh my God.
conversion.
Oh, absolutely.
Just because it's like, God, these over the past 10 years, and what was the last Jets playoff appearance was in the Rex Ryan era, right?
Yes, it was probably 2010 or 2011.
Yeah.
When they beat one of the back-to-back AFC Championship finals they went to, but didn't get to the Super Bowl.
I mean, Giants haven't won a playoff game since they won the Super Bowl, and it's been such crap for so many years, and just to see like a play go our way that way, and Saquon to come back and have that fight, I know I'm making it about the Giants, but.
For both of us,
it was emotional.
But for both of us as fan bases, long-suffering fan bases, especially in New York sports, essentially, besides the Yankees, and even for the Yankees, it's been 13 years since they were in the World Series.
Yeah.
So we're kind of used to, especially Jets and Giants fans the last few years, used to either lucky plays not going our way or like the momentum shifting backwards. Like, we're both very accustomed to clutching defeat out of the jaws of victory, not the other way around. So for it to go this way for week 1 and week 2, in the sense of like week 1 against the Titans, and now this kind of improbable 1-point victory sealed with an interception and an onside kick recovery, like it was just it was surreal for me, because I was like, these nice things don't happen for the Jets.
Right. Well, I mean, I was so happy for that, and like flipped out, even though I had no stake in that game. I was just excited for Jets fans. So that was one of the 2 like amazing comebacks from the weekend. Either
this will be our only win of the season, or we will lose the next 9 games and then somehow eke out a 7-10 season and get like the 11th pick in the draft. All right. Well, I mean, your joy was nice while it lasted. And I'll still be like, they're going to be good next season.
Well. We touched on this earlier, but let's just flesh a little bit more out the Cardinals and Raiders game. Kyler Murray really reminded people that he has special traits with that insane play to keep the drive alive. And that throw on that 2-point conversion was so beautiful. Like, it was between 3 defenders. It was, I gasped out loud. And, Cliff Kingsbury, he survives another week.
He needed this win very badly.
He really did. Because I don't think they're going far with him as the head coach, but I do understand that they feel married to him because of the way that they have constructed the team around his scheme, and also in tandem with that with Kyler Murray. But you talked about Austin Davis, right? The safety.
Ashton, yeah.
Ashton,
he's
sorry.
He's the wild spelling. Ashtyn.
Ashton Davis, right? I remember him now coming out. Did you say Cal? Yeah, right. I remember him in the uniform. But there was another defensive player who got a game-winning interception, who has kind of struggled to live up to draft pedigree in Arizona, and that's Isaiah Simmons.
Oh yeah.
Who a lot of Giants fans were flirting with in terms of we want to take him in the draft because he was such a freaky player, versatile, but difficult to pinpoint if you're not a coaching staff that has the smarts to be versatile with him. And they've struggled to integrate him into their team. And he got that overtime interception return, which was really cool to see that, this former first-round pick making a play for them.
Yeah, he was kind of the first of the last few. There have been a few players coming out of the draft where the appeal has kind of been oh, they're positionless, they are devoid of kind of pigeonholing where they play. They can play in the box, they can play in the slot, they can rush the passer. There was him. There was Isaiah Simmons when the Cardinals drafted him. The Cardinals, frankly, even did this last year when they drafted Zaven Collins, that linebacker out of Tulsa. He kind of was Micah Parsons,
but he's actually
he's probably the most successful iteration of this kind of player. The Cowboys, I think, and I think it's one of those things, almost like a Josh Allen thing, where it's guys like Micah Parsons don't fall off of trees. It's pretty unique that a guy like that can be that versatile and can be that dominant, both as a coverage guy and a pass rusher. And then another one I would also just mention, who's I think is decent and has a bright future, is Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from the Browns out of Notre Dame. He was kind of one of those guys too, where you basically line him up anywhere. But I agree. I loved watching Simmons at Clemson, so I'm happy to see him have some success. I am happy to see him make a big play in early on this season too.
Yeah, and the Cardinals were good at taking away Devontae Adams, so that Derek Carr is turning the ball over a little bit this season. Just something to monitor. And I mean, to me, the least talented team in that division is the Raiders, because that regime just made so many questionable draft picks, and it's left them in a poor position. So hopefully McDaniels can use this year as a learning year, and then kind of implement the personnel that he needs to make that team successful.
Stylistically with Carr, and it's not, I don't think they're that similar, but I think it potentially how their careers might pan out. I'm hoping this isn't the case, because honestly, like you said, he seems like a little bit of a cornball, but I actually do think he's probably a good guy, and I actually think some of he's actually been kind of responsible for a few pretty riveting end of game sequences, against the Chargers last year in Week 17, that crazy overtime game. But
who are you referring to?
But Carr.
Oh,
Carr. Yeah, sorry, I meant to say Derek Carr is but I fear that he might become this generation's Phillip Rivers, in the sense that I wonder if he might be a long time vet QB for one team, clearly talented, clearly smart, clearly a pretty good to great player, but essentially
good player.
I think he still has I think he still has the chance, and I think honestly, if he wasn't in that division, I think his play might be more inflated too. If he was in the Jaguars and Colts division, I think it might be a different story of who would be performing better with the current rosters of that division. But he just happens to be in the buzzsaw that is the AFC West.
But that's a really good comparison.
But the reason I say it with Rivers is I think he might continually be hamstringed by either him making just some boneheaded back-breaking error, or like one of his teammates doing it, like Alex Leatherwood, formerly, or something like that.
Yeah.
Not his teammate anymore, but someone like that.
Yeah,
just like
yeah.
committing a stupid holding penalty or false start penalty right as they're going to win a big game.
And they cannot run the ball right now either. And that's because I don't know, when you invest a first round pick and a flyer on an offensive tackle and then just cut him the next year, might set your offensive line back a bit.
That's what we would call in the biz not good process.
Oh, you're telling me that the John Gruden
Mike Mayock
Mike Mayock era didn't have sound process?
It's like, listen, Mike, I like that guy Alex Leatherwood, okay?
Yeah. I mean, and
he's got a good head on his shoulders.
Yeah. Come on, Mike.
Come on, Mike.
Mike.
Listen, Mike.
Spider 2Y Banana. They're like, they also don't have Incognito anymore, who was kind of holding that line together, despite being pretty huge psycho.
Despite being like literally Nelson from The Simpsons, he was actually quite a good tackle. Yeah.
Guard, I think. Yeah, but we'll see. That division is definitely a 2-team race in my opinion, between the Niners and the Rams.
Before we get to calls,
yeah.
Should I think the only thing we really haven't touched on is the Trey Lance situation.
Oh yeah. Okay. We'll definitely take calls, but I want to talk about 2 things.
Okay.
The Niners and the Bucs.
Oh yes, that's right. Oh my God, we haven't even got to Brady yet.
I know. So Trey Lance out for the year. That is a huge bummer, and I'm sorry for 49ers fans that were looking forward to watching him play. But that was a gruesome injury. He broke his ankle, and that was some of the frustration, I think, with Lance, is that he got injured like multiple times last year when he wasn't even the full-time starter, and he puts himself in some positions, although I know a lot of Niner fans were upset with the play call, so we don't need to play the blame game right now, but these were some of my concerns about him as a quarterback. Outside of his lack of accuracy and touch in short and intermediate throws, he has really shockingly poor pocket awareness and would take hits and not notice the rush, and just like in terms of his the way that he would hold his body, like very stiff athlete, even the way he runs. So I'm hoping for the best for him, but this is another year without playing. Another year without playing. He didn't play in college during COVID, and then he got drafted, right? And
that's right. Yep.
Or then there was a year after, and he got what? He got injured. Yeah.
He did not beyond what was considered some of the skepticism behind drafting him early. Was not just the FCS talent at North Dakota State that some scouts and some teams I think were given pause by. The issue wasn't only that; it was the fact that he didn't play a whole lot of games when he was actually at the school.
Yeah.
So he had both I think a combination of injuries and COVID related about a lot of those players a few players in the 2021 draft elected to take that year off instead of for fear of potentially aggravating any injury or getting injured or anything like that. Penei Sewell was injured, so he didn't play. I believe Rashawn Slater out of Northwestern did not play that year because of COVID. So there were a few pretty blue chip players who did not, and Lance, I believe, was one of them. So even coming in, it wasn't as if he was a 4-year starter at North Dakota State, even a 2-year starter and played every game.
And he had played like
8 or 9 games.
He converted to quarterback from a defensive back position or safety or something like that.
Yeah.
So and it showed. It showed, guys. It really showed. And I think it also showed how the team responded when Jimmy got back in the game.
Well, there were reports, and obviously, this came out, I think, from Bleacher Report, like an insider, or maybe someone in the Bay Area reporting this out, that some unnamed players, unnamed sources were basically saying that there was some sigh of relief that Jimmy was back in, and that they could kind of start playing so-called 49ers football or whatever.
Well, I mean, if you're a pass catcher in that offense, how excited are you to have Jimmy G back? And I am a Jimmy G hater in the sense that, like,
No, me too. Honestly,
I was
me
so annoyed. I feel like I'm having somewhat of a similar conversation with Tua right now, where it's like the offense is successful. They're putting up points. It looks awesome on the stat sheet. But I am telling you guys that a quarterback with more talent would have brought more out of this offense. Like I was always saying, he's a bottom, half of the league starter, if not around, maybe on the bubble of bottom half to bottom third, Jimmy G. So I don't think he does a ton well. I think, he's a good person in that system. But what's concerning is that he gets injured too. So they need to figure something out for the backup But for his sake, like, hey, you're going to get all that incentive money that you got structured into that contract, like way more of it than you probably thought.
And take the Jimmy G aspect out of it. The whole, keeping him after there was so much scuttlebutt about him being traded to his team, to a quarterback needy team. Take out anything regarding Lance's ability, and also no fault. There's absolutely no fault. Players get injured. Players have bad injury luck. It is hard to be an NFL player.
Oh.
It is devastating on your body. So I do not fault. There's no satisfaction. It's just a real freaking bummer that Trey Lance was not even able to even prove that he might be bad.
Yeah.
He wasn't even able to prove that over the whole season. The biggest so all I'm saying with this is take all of that out. Take the stuff on the field out of it. The 49ers having traded 3 first-round picks for a raw toolsy quarterback to take in the was that 4th overall, I believe, or 5th or 3rd overall, for him to have played started 4 games over the last 2 seasons, for them to then now be relying on their backup who was their starter before, is one of the most, like, really borderline inexcusable front office decisions in the last, like, few years in this league. To expend that much capital and for this to be the result is really, really, really bad.
And given the rawness of where he was, like, Mac Jones, can you look this up, Bradley? Was he taken at 15 overall, where the Pats were? Something like that. Like, Mac Jones fell to the Pats in the middle of the first round. Was it 15
He was
overall?
15. Yeah, he was 15.
God, I remember weird things like that. But then I can't remember, just what I ate for breakfast. But do you think that Trey Lance would have been there around then? I think so.
I don't think that. I genuinely do not think that either theoretically, there's a chance that the Niners could have traded down and still taken Lance.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a chance that, they take Mac at 3 and have while maybe not as much of a high ceiling guy, a pretty pinpoint accurate, very heady quarterback. He definitely does not have the athletic tools or like the speed or potentially anything like that Lance might have had in terms of like what they were seeing as his ceiling. But
he's an underrated athlete in the pocket, by the way.
But he also is really, you're also going to have no issue with processing, no issue with making your reads with Mac Jones, especially in the offense that would have been completely catered towards him in San Francisco.
Fine, trade up and take Justin Fields. You'd be better off with Justin Fields.
Absolutely, I agree.
And Justin Fields, everyone understood Justin Fields was more pro-ready than Trey Lance at the time. Like, Justin Fields is a better athlete than Trey Lance. Justin Fields can run better than Trey Lance.
And played against better competition and had better success in college.
I don't know what they saw at all. And I feel bad because, like, it's a bit of a bummer, and I feel terribly for the kid. I mean, for Trey Lance, who seems like a really nice person. But you could tell how the teammates responded to Jimmy G coming back in. And frankly, they were relieved. So we'll see. I think that this increases the chances of the 49ers having success because I have so much faith in that system. And we're putting them firmly back in the Super Bowl conversation now.
I mean,
Just given how weak the NFC is,
absolutely, but also,
and,
I mean,
and Shanahan's ability to just scheme.
the guy is the Ted Lasso of the NFL. Like, he is purely vibrational in the sense that, like, he's not technically that skilled, but you can't really argue with the record.
Yeah.
He's won so many games with the 49ers. They went to the Super Bowl with him.
I know.
Like, it's hard to argue, and also it would be a different thing if like it seemed like the locker room or his teammates didn't like him. Deebo Samuel at last year did not have to like go on Twitter and like loudly advocate for Jimmy being their quarterback. Like, these guys like this guy.
I know. They really like him. So I mean, he's BFFs with Kittle too. It seems like so. That's the state of those things. But I hope Trey Lance gets better.
And apparently, he just tweeted out that his ankle surgery was very successful.
Good.
So he should be on the road to recovery, and we do wish him all the best.
Yeah. Last topic in terms of the games from yesterday, Tom Brady, then the Bucs defeated the Saints. Honestly, it seemed like the Saints were outplaying them for a majority of the game, and I thought that the Saints would win until I saw the breaking news late before the game started that Jameis Winston was playing with 4 fractures in his back, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that changes the calculation for things. I don't think he should be playing if he has fractures in his back, but Tom Brady was just out of his mind the whole game. And, I know he's the GOAT, right? I know this. I've been reminded of this. But from a personal level, the MAGA hat in the back of his locker notwithstanding, just in terms of how it appears like he treats his teammates, the people are afraid to criticize him because he's a winner. But, like, look at this crap. Can you imagine if Odell was doing this during his time with the Giants, or, like, I don't know, any player who's perceived as a diva right now? I'm trying to think of one, and oddly, I can't think of one. But
Well, also, not for nothing. Well, I'll give an example. Steve Smith.
Yeah.
Not active anymore, but I would say Steve Smith was considered, hothead, big, like, short temper. But I also have to remember, this man is 45 years old.
he acts like a bitch.
Like,
he acts like a little baby.
He's like and especially in the league, like, he's like probably the old. I think he is the oldest player in the league.
Yeah.
So,
well, Whitworth's gone, and he had
like 3 years on.
3 years
Whitworth?
on. Yeah.
So I just mean, it's also like, I feel like you should just, as a 45-year-old man, like, probably, like, I know he's super competitive.
Let's put up these other images
I
of him
will.
too.
Yeah, like, he's insanely competitive, but that doesn't really excuse, like, you don't need to do this. Like, some people don't do this. Like,
And it would be one thing if he was screaming at all of his teammates, and if, I don't know, like, you heard that he was friends with any of them. But now that Gronk's gone, it seems like he comes in, he plays quarterback, he screams at his players, and he leaves. He takes Wednesdays off. I mean, he was going bonkers. Like, we can't play the video, but every time, just slow motion screaming at the top of his lungs, even if the throw from him was bad. I was getting pissed off because I was watching him throw, and I'm like, you threw that behind the guy, and yet then I see you slow motion chewing him out, freaking out at your receivers, at your players for this not being the right outcome. And I mean, again, like, these are just some screen grabs of how he was looking. And I know that maybe there are some poor reports that there's some issues at home or something like that. Like, this is how he looked when this is the other thing I sent, that when he showed up to the press conference. Bradley's gonna pull this up, but I really don't like. I don't think this is necessary to treat your teammates like this. And I understand maybe he has some issues, but he's one of the wealthiest players in the league. Everybody kisses his ass on a regular basis. Oh, he's the GOAT. Let's have an in-season documentary on how amazing he is. And I'm going to brand every single part of my life and put up a music video every time we win a game. And I'm going to market myself and make sure that my personality and my public persona is as commercialized and as sellable as humanly possible, but don't you dare ask me about why I went on an 11-day hiatus in the middle of training camp. Don't ask me that. Don't ask me any questions about my process and about my decisions and about the clear tampering that happened with the Miami Dolphins that I'm going to pretend never happened. Like, give me a break. This dude's the fakest guy in the league.
And also, don't ask me about my shrunken head.
He looks like, I hope he's okay.
Don't ask me about my concave cheeks.
Man, he has issues, and I don't like that the league rewards him just because he's won all those championships and because he's the winningest quarterback in terms of just like actual Super Bowl rings in the history of the league. That doesn't mean that he has the right to set his own rules for the team, bark at his teammates. And I'll never forget last year when he forgot what down it was and went fourth, and then goes into the press conference and denies that I knew what down it was. Then he waits to the offseason and he jokes about it on a podcast that I got confused. He's a liar, and he never holds he never holds himself accountable, but demands accountability for everybody else.
And he basically did the same thing with the Tuck Rule game too. Like, for the longest time, it was always considered like, oh, it was up in the air, and then like more recently, he was like, yeah, we got away with that one. Like, he knows to a degree. It's like a little bit like a knowing smirk. It's like, yeah, I am kind of a bastard, aren't I?
It is when he does leave the league, he's the most villainous of villains, and it's easy to hate him. So there's a part of me that enjoys his presence because he's so hateable. But frankly, I think that there is a worship of the white quarterback and a devaluing of the guys that made him who he is. And it's done by him on the field in the way that he treats the people that he works with that really bothers me. And I think that the rest of the NFL is afraid to call him out about it because of him being the greatest of all time. And, you know, and
it just goes to show
he's a dick.
And it does go to show you. And I mean, this type of behavior is not the same as, like, say, someone, you know, committing an actual crime or anything. But it just, I mean, in the sense of, like, broadly in a league like the NFL, but in a lot of sports, behavior, like certain behavior and certain conduct really maps on to, like, in terms of like appropriateness or like in terms of if any discipline is doled out, it's based on how good you are. Mm-hmm. It's not based on the actual commitment of anything.
And he's a creature of that right now. He's doing whatever the hell he wants, leaving in the middle of the week, leaving in the middle of training camp because he knows he can do it.
If Scotty Miller, who's like wide receiver 3 or 4 on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, just as an example, if he didn't show up to training camp or if he left in the middle, if he was screaming at Leonard Fournette like that, if he was screaming at Chris Godwin or Mike Evans on that, he wouldn't be on the team. He'd be off the team tomorrow.
Yeah.
He would not have a job tomorrow.
Right. And honestly, guys, other great quarterbacks don't treat their players like this. Patrick Mahomes, loved by his teammates. Aaron Rodgers, sorry, I know people don't like him because of the vaccine stuff, but this is the reality. Loved by his teammates.
In his post game interview yesterday, Aaron Jones they were raving about each other.
They look at each other with Google eyes.
Yeah, they were. I mean, there is something to be said about having an actual like relationship, and I know there have been reports that some people didn't have. Like you said, like we were talking about a few weeks, Greg Jennings or like Jermichael Finley, there are certainly a few players who didn't have this relationship, but there are many who do and speak very highly of Rodgers.
Yeah, Josh Allen, great relationship with the team.
Jimmy Garoppolo, we were just
I mean,
it's like this guy's not even that good, and they love him.
I can point out 3 people I can think of these starting quarterbacks that really don't get along with their teammates. It's Carson Wentz, it's Russell Wilson. Old teammates, maybe we'll see on this new team, and it's definitely Tom Brady because he is essentially an extension of like management, of coaching in the huddle, and that can be a good thing. And a quarterback has to do that to an extent, but he's actually just like a psycho who berates his teammates, and I think his ego is out of control. So sorry if I'm a hater, but yeah, I fucking hate you, dude. Anyway. Let's take some calls.
And one suggestion I'd have for the calls, if possible, I don't know who's watching, but if there are any Bengals fans on the line, let's talk about the game yesterday on Sunday.
I know. I wish we had more time, but damn, I was so sure the Bengals were going to beat the Cowboys.
I mean, I just think we're really seeing the Burrow and Chase show versus like the team will go as far as Zachary Taylor will let them in terms of like not hamstringing them to just do like the most like white bread vanilla ice cream ass football when they have like a good smart quarterback and the best wide receiver in the league. It's unconscionable.
Yeah. Dude, guy pal, I love y'all and I'm enjoying the show for the most part, but like, why are you spending this much time on Brady yelling? I don't like the dude, but come on. We're doing what we want to do. ESVNB. Is it me or does everyone think Emma and Brandon have a deep this is Bradley. Brandon have a deep passion for what they're doing and the chemistry between them is amazing. Just wish the show production was a little bit more interesting. Maybe interview each other in the conversation style or like those video podcast shows. Why not? We're working on the format, guys. We're on episode 3. I am hearing you though. We have some ideas in the works. What?
I could be Brandon also.
Yeah, there you go. Antifa Lockhart, Leatherwood, we talking Bears? That team needs to buy every O-line on the market until they find 3 that are functional. I know. The thing is they don't let them go. Like, if you have strong offensive linemen, those teams, like, really hold on to them. They're not going to trade them. That's the thing.
I will say, though, there were not that many good moments for the Bears, but in yesterday's game. But Lucas Patrick played pretty well, one of their guards, so.
Yeah. Okay, calling from a 770 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Yo, what's up, Emma? What's up, Bradley? This is David in Atlanta. Hope y'all are doing all right.
David.
Hey, David.
Well, I'm just calling to see if you could maybe talk me out of my delusion that I'm feeling about the Falcons right now. I'm torn. I'm torn between feeling like this is a team that is a handful of players, a handful of plays away from a very competitive team pushing for the playoffs maybe 2-3 seasons from now even, to burn it all down, scorch the earth, crazy coaching decisions the past 2 games, just, I don't know, a lot of snark that feels unwarranted. I know, Emma, you had an issue with what they've been doing up front on both sides of the ball, and I agree. I think that was very under-addressed this past offseason. Maybe that'll get changed when we have more cap space. But y'all's thoughts on maybe just kind of how they've been surprisingly competitive, I guess, but clearly, still a bit of ways from being competitive. And also, if y'all saw Nick Wright's take on the Brett Favre situation, really awesome take. Got into, myths about welfare, talking about Amazon and Walmart having us subsidize their employees' incomes. I'm kind of a Nick Wright fan now, so maybe
nice.
thoughts on those 2 things.
Yeah,
really good.
That's good to hear.
And good for that to be happening on Fox Sports
right,
too.
I was about to say.
Welcome take.
I think it was his podcast.
Oh, okay, so there you go. That makes sense.
I don't know. I know because I was like, wait, what? And then I thought
they allowed that.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of your take on the Falcons, I guess I was surprised the offensive line is not as bad as I thought.
No.
Yeah.
And there's been good pressure from them too.
Yeah.
On defense.
And I mean, they were able to hold their own in the end with the Rams, who have an issue at offensive line. But
yeah.
I for me, I think the Falcons are going to be a bottom 10 team in the league this year without question.
Yeah,
so
sure.
They just need to hit it on a quarterback in the draft. And then I think
I'm praying for Lamar in free agency.
That also is a great possibility.
Oh my god! Imagining Lamar,
he'd be incredible.
Lamar, Kyle Pitts, Cordero Patterson, and Drake London. Who, by the way, nice little route, got right in the end zone, touchdown in his home city.
And I was lower on Drake London because I was like, all right, he's a 50-50 ball guy, but does he have the speed to really hack it or be worthy of being the first receiver taken in the draft? And looks like he's got it. I mean, at the very least, he can hang with the big boys, and he's having a lot of success, way more than I thought right out of the gates.
And I mean, him and Pitts are two
mismatch
mutants,
nightmare.
freak athletes. And
yeah.
I think I think the reason why they're probably a little bit more feisty than maybe we were going to give them credit for is, like you said, they have a few good pieces on the line. I mean, Lindstrom and Jake Matthews are no slouches. They're actually pretty good, offensive linemen. Grady Jarrett is still has a bunch of juice, on the defensive line. AJ Terrell, despite getting destroyed by Michael Thomas in Week 1, is a genuinely good young cornerback. But I will say too, Arthur Smith, FedEx fortune notwithstanding, is a very, very creative play caller. He's one of the reasons why the Titans had such a dynamic offense before he was poached. So I think at minimum, the personnel is interesting enough with Pitts and Cordero Patterson and London that he can do some kind of cool things with them. I just think it's a talent gap in terms of whether they can actually be feistier than just kind of like a spoiler team for certain teams who aren't really expecting them to be as competitive as they are.
So TBD, in my opinion, just because of if they fall apart, then I think you should fire Arthur Smith so that the new coaching staff is not on the hot seat when you get a new quarterback coming in, so it's not that sick cycle. You know what I mean, David?
Yeah. I'm just afraid that there's already been so much kind of committed to the Arthur Smith vision. But I definitely again, some of the decisions that have been made the past 2 weeks, especially that 4th and 1 on Week 1, just so incredibly painful.
Yeah.
And obviously everything is hindsight 2020, but it's just, I feel like in your house, Week 1 against, the freaking Saints, you got to pull that out. But I appreciate y'all's thoughts. I won't make you talk about the Falcons too much
No.
longer.
And let me just add one more thing about Lamar. They can't get him in free agency because the Ravens will tag him. But unlike the Dolphins, they actually will have first round picks to deal if necessary. So.
Him and that Arthur Smith scheme, I think, would be, with all those weapons, like you were saying, Bradley, just so hard to scheme against.
Oh yeah.
But appreciate y'all, loving the show so far. Just don't freaking listen to the haters. I don't know what they're expecting.
They're my motivators, David.
And that stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I said. I'm happy for somebody, and again, hearing Nick Wright saying that was super encouraging. But I'm happy that y'all are doing this. I'm happy you're taking up the space. We need left fielders in sports talk. So appreciate y'all. Stub is first, left is best. Y'all be good.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it.
So one thing I just wanted to mention before we get to our next call is just, did you see the thing about how Matt Ryan's commemorative ball at the Hall of Fame for him passing the 60,000-yard mark was numbered 283?
No.
I saw that, and I literally was like, I like the Jesse Pinkman from Breaking Bad meme. They can't keep getting away with this. It's give the guy a break, okay?
Yeah, it's really just, man.
Never relentless, absolutely relentless.
Tame Bradley says, Emma, you're spot on about Brady. He's a megalomaniac and over his head due to his achievements, and hope his legacy will be forgotten if he continues his attitude. It won't be. Cristiano Ronaldo is almost exactly the same in soccer. He thinks he's now bigger than his team, leaves matches midway if he is substituted, and cries like a baby if he is not selected.
And not for nothing. Ronaldo, again, one of the, probably aside for Messi and Neymar, the one of the three greatest football, FUTBOL football players, and now and in history, but also personally. I'm struggling if I can. I know it's a little alleged, but he's a bad guy. Him and his family have committed numerous have been charged with tax evasion multiple times. He's been knotted up in a very, very grisly sexual assault case. He's not a good person, and he is extremely competitive, extremely talented. I get that, but you kind of can see both things on and off the field.
Yeah, agreed. Mike Roballs, hey Emma and Bradley, love the new show. Living here in the San Francisco Bay Area, one thing that's been brought up in local media is Kyle Shanahan's attitude during post-game interviews. Seems totally unbothered by the Lance injury. Locals really turning on the coach. How much runway do you think Kyle has left? I would give him a lot more runway. It seems like the players really love him, so he's probably just Belichicking for the media. But it's a big market, so you're gonna get media having those kinds of complaints anyway.
I think that's more like to fill ink and columns. Like he's just kind of circumspect sometimes, and he's not super gregarious like other coaches are. It's just kind of him. Like he's like that for basically everything. I mean, he when he's asked about like what the depth chart for wide receiver is going to look like, he's like hesitant to like be to confirm anything.
Right.
About draft picks, about everything. He's just kind of like that.
Yeah.
I don't think that's enough to be like, oh, like he's losing the faithful. Like I don't think that's the case.
Comrade Swoop, do you think the Giants will try and draft Will Levis? Also, how do you think Wan'Dale Robinson will do this season? Don't tell people about Will Levis. Okay, I know people like him already, but I want the Giants to take Will Levis really badly. And I like Richardson out of Florida, but I think he needs to stay one more year. Like, he had a great debut, but
he's raw, but I mean he's super athletic, but he's definitely like if everything,
he has a strong arm too, and a
totally.
natural thrower, unlike Trey Lance. For example.
If everything could go right for Richardson, I think his ceiling is quite high. He's very very fun to watch.
Yeah.
And Levis is too. Levis has a similar. Levis to me has I would say maybe Richardson probably just broadly is more athletic, but Levis I think is similarly very dynamic in both.
Nope. No, he sucks.
Oh, sorry. He's bad.
You should fall to the second round.
He actually is bad. I have a high 5th round grade on him.
Yeah, right.
He might not even get drafted.
Maybe he'll sneak into the 4th round.
Yeah, he might be there after day 3 of the draft.
So, Comrade Swoop, to answer your question, I'm very high on Will Levis, and if I think that they should trade up if they need to get him. Calling from a 970 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, I take it this is me.
This is you. Who's you?
I'm David from Dolores, Colorado.
Another David.
Doing?
Well, David number 2.
Second David.
How are you?
I'm glad the Broncos won, but you did read my IM earlier. To elaborate on that, it seems like for so many years in the red zone, the Broncos go 3 and out and let their kicker take the points. Because if you've played fantasy and had Broncos kickers, they're great to have because they can't get into the damn end zone.
Yeah.
Settle for field goals.
What's with what was like? You like Javonte Williams, right? Like, I feel like they're totally underutilizing him.
Yes. I didn't see the game. I don't have TV, so I was listening to it on the radio. And so I probably would have been more furious if I saw what you saw and not thrown it to him. But it just seems like a do-nothing offense, and they've had great defenses over the past 20 years that should have way more rings than they do. But like even Peyton Manning, it seemed like they were playing small ball in the red zone, and their touchdowns usually came from big plays.
Yeah. Well, agreed. Any other questions?
I thought I would share my Super Bowl prediction in light of recent events. You might get a chuckle out of it.
Yes,
There you go.
David.
I picked the Bills and the 49ers, and my additional prediction was that Trey Lance was going to replace Trent Dilfer as the worst quarterback to win the Super Bowl.
Wow. I mean, hey, but maybe Jimmy
It still
Garoppolo-
could be Jimmy.
It still could be Jimmy. Your prediction could be pretty close.
Yeah, I'll take it if that happens.
All right, there you go. Thanks, David.
Thanks. And as for your format, I like how you're just trying to find it organically. That's the way to go.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank you.
David.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm pretty sure it's one person who's sending a lot of IMs.
That was not on purpose that we had two people say don't in a row who are both named David say don't listen to the haters.
Yeah. All right. Now David calling with a
Well,
different
2 out
voice.
of 2 Davids agree.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Thanks, David.
Bye.
Take care.
All right. Calling from an 818 area code. I literally think we might be going, if I know who this is, for 3 Davids, the David trifecta.
Yeah.
Hey,
This
Dave
is
from
the
Jamaica.
David hat trick.
Yes, exactly.
Dave. Hey, Dave.
How are you?
It's long time no show. As long time no see. And
That's right.
I have to say before I ask my question, I'm really enjoying the show.
Thank
It
you.
is great. And as people are saying, we need some good lefties in the sports space, and I think you two are doing a bang up job.
Thanks,
Thank
Dave.
you.
All right. Now the flattery is out of the way. I have no points of improvement. I just know that with time, as you get more resources, things will come. But us sports fans, we need our bright flashing lights and everything.
Yeah, right, exactly.
hmm Well, my question is not political. Well, it is political in a sense, but it is. I've been noticing, especially how big the sports gambling industry is.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys have any concerns it's affecting the play of the game of sports in general?
Well, in terms of play, no,
Mhm.
but I do think that it opens up, like, and honestly, Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk has been really out ahead of this, but the league up for some potential liabilities when, like, this is why they couldn't admit to tanking in the Brian Flores lawsuit. Because if you are not putting your best product out onto the field and knowingly losing, and that's really hard to prove, but then that could open you up to some liabilities if people are waging money on legally on certain games, and then the play is not in good faith. So I don't know what the language is, but right now it's a bit of a wild, wild west situation in terms of like what the relationship is between the product being put on the field, not the league office and these sports books, but the product on the field and the bettor in who's placing wagers in these books. So it's potentially if Congress doesn't get involved, it could be an issue. But we have someone writing in, Drew from Vegas, saying he wants to pick up on a 301 area code to weigh in on this. Dave, if you don't mind me hanging up on you, and then I'll answer his call.
I'll hang up, but I'll just ask for one fun thing and then I'll disappear.
Okay.
Well, normally I eat hockey, but sell me on the sport of hockey if I should get into it, and I'll disappear now.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave.
Well, Dave, if you like really high intensity the punctuation of like just small amounts of payoff but high levels of intensity at all times in these periods, and then you get like a lot of just quick gasps and close calls. And if you like just the hard-hitting nature in sports, I think you'll like hockey. Hockey, none of the players have any personality, so you're not going to get your enjoyment out of that like in the NBA. But you will enjoy the fact that hockey, in my opinion, has a playoff hockey game from start to finish is the most tense experience of any sports viewing.
I was just gonna say to piggyback off that, Dave, like I remember a few years ago watching a overtime playoff game for like to clinch a series between the Dallas Stars and the St. Louis Blues, two teams who I have no affinity for, basically knew next to nothing. I mean, as I'm a follower of the league, but I don't know much about them as I do about the Devils or the Rangers, and I could barely breathe for like 2 hours until it went into overtime.
Wow.
Also, it is just like it is riveting to have. It is riveting because it is like Emma said. Every situation is very high leverage because one goal can be the difference between winning and losing, and especially in overtime, the sudden death nature of overtime makes every missed shot on net and every goal just like so unbelievably momentous and exciting. It can be over before you know it.
I think the two of you just sold me, and I'm coming from a combat sports background since that's what I grew up doing, and I think you guys are selling me.
Oh,
anyway,
you a UFC fan, Dave?
Huh?
Are you a UFC fan?
in the early days when
I
it was
gotcha.
really horrible. Even though I can watch it from time to time because it's something I understand
Right,
since
right, I
I
gotcha.
do combat. Right. But I definitely am trying to get back into the ball-based sports again.
Well, keep
Even
us
though I was
posted.
never very good at them.
Well, keep us posted on your hockey journey.
Yes. Thanks, Dave.
Yes, no problem.
Bye. All right, guys, this will be the final call of the day because I am very interested to hear from the person who works on a sports book. Oh, we'll have to. All right, is this Drew from Vegas?
I feel like I get to officially say, "Is this me?"
Oh, is that it? I believe Drew from Vegas. Is
Yeah.
this you?
That's me. That's
All
me.
right,
Cool.
awesome.
We picked the right one.
We picked the right 301.
Are there multiple 301s?
There
Another
was
301 on the line. We weren't sure.
Yeah.
It was like, which wire do we cut?
So thanks for calling
two
in.
quick things I want to get out of the way
Yeah.
first before we talk about this. Number one, I've called in basically to Majority Report every Thursday trying to do sports takes with Emma. So I'm so pumped you guys have your own show now. So I can do sports.
Thanks so
Welcome
much.
to the jungle.
And number two, regarding the kind of negative feedback, I just want to say the third show, you can definitely tell you guys are finding your rhythm, and I think you're doing great. I think this was the best episode. So I think
Thank you, Drew.
Screw the haters. I think you guys are doing great.
Thanks, Drew.
Your check is in the mail.
Yeah, so real quick, so it's called sports trading, like that's the fancy name, but it's basically I'm a bookie. Like I just set odds. I work for a very big book. I guarantee you guys use them in Jersey, or I guess now New York. I won't say which one, but I promise you it's one you've heard of. They have a lot of commercials on TV. I promise. But I won't
So
say
either
which one.
FanDuel or DraftKings. That's okay.
Nope. I won't say which one.
Okay.
But yeah, so I mean, I was actually calling in because I wanted to do. So I'm leftist. I'm a committed DSA member out here in Vegas, and it's a very. I remember there was a caller to Majority Report who talked about like kind of Michael Brooks's kind of belief that you should invade kind of right-wing spaces and just kind of plant a flag, and I firmly believe that's what I'm trying to do in sports booking and gambling and stuff like that. So I love your guys' show, and I love you guys what you were doing with this show specifically. So I'm super hyped to be on. So I would love to, if you want to ask questions, I'm happy to answer. Regarding what Dave from Jamaica was saying, if there's any integrity issues, I'll tell you this right now, it won't be from the books. It'll be the kind of like Donaghy side where there's some better, in our lingo, they're called syndicates, which are very smart sports bettors who pool a lot of resources and put down massive amounts of money. Like the sportsbook doesn't care about the outcome of the game. We don't care. We largely make money regardless of the outcome because we can book both sides, right? Like if we get a lot of money on one side of the event, we'll just move the line to try and encourage money on the other side so that largely whatever the outcome, we're going to make money. Largely, sometimes one outcome is more profitable than the other, but we're almost always going to make money on the outcome. So we don't care about influencing what the outcome is. If anybody's going to do that, it's going to be syndicates, it's going to be smart bettors that are really heavily leveraged on one side that want that outcome. So I'll say that. I can't say it won't impact it, but if there's anyone doing it, it's not going to be the books. It's going to be the syndicates and the big professional bettors. So I'll answer Dave's question.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess I'm curious about your thoughts about how the books would respond to like a team that's tanking, right? And if there's any liability for not for the books, but for the team that say might be tanking and the league associated with it. Because for me, like I'm not necessarily completely sold on that argument because like if you were say betting on the Dolphins in the period that involved that Brian Flores' lawsuit covered, you had an understanding that they had hollowed out their roster and that they were likely trying to be one of the worst teams in the league that year. So I'm not sure if that holds any water, but I'm curious what your take is, because I would guess that the onus falls on the bettor in that, the person placing the wager in that instance.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like the advantage there would be, like you said, it's the bettor, and the book is not betting, right? We're just taking the bets. So like, yeah, if you're a bettor and you had inside knowledge that they're actively doing that, you could definitely make money. If the book had inside knowledge, it would maybe shift odds a little bit, but we'd get bet back to what that number would have been based on what the public thought, right? So, like, sometimes we'll take stands and we'll say, we get a lot of action on this side, but we're not going to move the line. We're going to, like, keep taking action and build up, like, this side versus this side. I hope I'm explaining this well.
Yeah.
Like, we'll do that, but like I said, the real it'll still probably move because we have, like, risk managers, right? So we're not allowed to build up a massive position, even if we're really smart about how, like, let's just say you have inside knowledge. You could build up a big position. So, like, if you knew that, I'm just making an example, like the quarterback had secretly a really bad knee problem, right? And we're really like the team we think that team's going to lose. In theory, like, I'm not saying this happens. This literally does not happen. But in theory, like, we could build up a massive position because we have inside knowledge, but we're going to get told we don't want that big a risk because even if we like the side with the hurt quarterback to lose, we're only allowed to have so much liability on one side. We have to start moving the line to encourage there be even action. Now, if you were betting and you knew that, you don't have that same oversight. You don't have people telling you keep both sides of the bet even. You could go put more and more and more and more and more and more money on that one side and make a ton of money. So
well, that's the thing. So my final question for you.
But the book won't do it.
Right.
Yeah.
But say you have these, like, big fish who are pouring tons of money into one side. Does that sway the line? And so could that be potentially some, like, not liability for the book, because, you know, the book is just they're trying to create the line that makes it most profitable for them, so there's even money on both sides, as you say. But if there is, like, a conspiracy on the outside to pour money into one side to move a line to push things in their favor, again, the outcome's not guaranteed, but is that where some of the liability comes in?
Yes, and, like, that will happen, but we'll also, like, you usually move lines a lot more based on your reputation as a bettor. So, like, obviously we track, like, if you win a lot, we know that, right? Like, it's not like you're a random person every time. So we have accounts that we know are good winners, right? That the side they bet is more likely to be right than the average side. So if you're putting a lot of money down and we know you're really good, we'll move the line faster than if you're just some random person putting down $50, right? You won't move the line at all. So yeah, if we get pouring in money on one side, we'll move the line. This gets a little bit more complicated because there's other sports books that are considered sharper sports books that take bigger limits. So their lines will move faster than ours, right? Because they're taking, you know, if our limit is $50,000, there's sports books out there that limits are $200,000.
Are those smaller books?
So if you're no, they're offshore, but they're well known. There's one called Pinnacle. Pinnacle is considered like the super sharp book. They're not available in the U.S. In theory, you can use a VPN to get around it. But, like, Pinnacle will take $500,000 bets. Wow. So if you're a sharp bettor and you're trying to make money, you're going to bet on that book because you can get a lot of money down. So their lines move very quickly based on the action they're getting. So if their line moves, the book I work for, we'll move our line before we get any bets, because if Pinnacle's moving, that means we're probably going to get hit too. We should make that line sharper before we get bets on it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So we'll move off that. Yeah, I know you guys probably have to go. I know.
We have to wrap, but I'm hoping, Andrew, we'll flag your or Drew, sorry, I should say, we'll flag your number because next time, like, there's something sports book related, I want you to call in and weigh in. This was awesome. I really appreciate it.
Can I give one super fast anti-Tom Brady comment?
Yeah.
I usually let that one
Always welcome.
The thing that really bothered me about Tom Brady, right? Well, despite the fact that he was annoying and good, and this is a very leftist thing, that when the new CBA came out and they agreed to, like, Tom Brady went apeshit about how the league's making more money and the salary cap went down and what the hell is the union doing and they're screwing over the players. this coming from the guy who has every year on the Patriots taken a below market contract, driving down the numbers for quarterbacks. Because if Tom Brady's making $20 million and you're 80% as good as Tom Brady, they're never going to pay you $22 million, even though Tom Brady should be making 30.
And
This
he
guy
did
has
that
driven
not
down.
he did that not out of benevolence. He did that so Belichick wouldn't cut him. Like that was the whole situation. Yeah.
And he hurt people. He hurt players by driving down their own wages. Like, I guess he's technically allowed to take the deal he wants, but like, he'll come in criticizing the union, who has plenty to criticize for, but that's not one of them, in my opinion. And I don't know. Tom Brady, like, talented quarterback, undeniably so, but annoying dude for sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was my anti-Tom Brady.
Thanks, Drew.
Thanks, Drew.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Keep those shows. Awesome. You guys are
Appreciate
killing
it. Thank you.
Of course.
All right, folks, we are going to read some IMs, and then we're going to get out of here. That was the final call of the day. Warren from Toronto. Also, Ronaldo took a pic with Jordan Peterson the other day. Oh,
yes,
boy.
I said that to my friend, actually. I was like, what the hell is going on? What is this meeting of the minds?
This is Revolution from Mexico says, I just tuned in. Has Emma admitted she was wrong about Tua? I have not.
Call in, Jason. I want you to call in.
Aaron is not cool. How about them Cowboys? Yeah. Majority Report wardrobe coordinator. Dolphins fan Bill Polian would take Lamar as a receiver because he isn't that accurate and better suited for the position. Sarcasm. He'd be a great target for Tua. Mind pillow guy. Lamar played out of his mind Sunday, but his defense let him down. They didn't cover Waddle or Tyreek and let them score 42 points, and now the story is how great Tua is. It drives me crazy that Lamar doesn't get the respect he deserves. Totally agree. C/ says this is now a pickleball podcast. Let's go. Okay, maybe. Colin from Nebraska. My Rams almost got Falcon this past weekend, 28-3 blown lead, but Lucky McVay and his perfect beard made the 200 IQ safety play. Yes. Gotta run around the end zone, make sure take time off the clock. And the final IM of the day. Google Murray blockchain. As a Bills fan, I was never a huge fan of Daboll. He definitely has a tendency to be way too cute on his play calling. I also remember that when Daboll moved from the sideline to the box, Josh Allen's development really took off. Well, I mean, he's looking pretty good so far with the Giants. All right, guys.
Really quick before we go.
Yeah.
I'm putting you on the spot again.
Oh.
Monday
2
picks.
games.
I just wrote mine down, so I will. So
Okay,
we have the Vikings and the Eagles facing off.
I'm opening the book.
And the Bills and the Titans. I'm based on how the Bills have looked the last few weeks, I'm predicting the Bills are going to crap on the Titans. So I have Bills 31, Titans 10.
The line is 10?
I'm not super surprised. And then for Eagles, Vikings, I'm going to make it a little interesting. I'm picking the Eagles over the Vikings, 27-24.
I'm picking the Vikings. I've already placed a wager.
27-23, excuse me. 27-23.
And I'm not encouraging gambling, but I already have done so. Because I made some money on picking the Jags last week, but I did get screwed over by the Bengals. Okay, so the line is -10 for the Bills over the Titans. The Bills are playing at home, so that does help things. But I think that line is too big. I think the Bills are going to win by a touchdown. That's how I'm going to go with it. Yeah. Bills are going to win by a touchdown. Let me say 27-20. So that's just under. 27-20 Buffalo. I think Vrabel is a good coach, and
talk about a guy who coaches up a team that's not that personnel is not as good as another team.
Yeah, and they'll be pissed after losing to the Giants last week. Yeah. And then I think the Vikings are going to beat the Eagles at home, and it's going to be 28-24. So I have obviously the Vikings covering and them pulling off the upset in the Eagles' home stadium.
And to keep us honest, I will, like we've been doing all of our shows, I will put these in the YouTube and podcast descriptions.
All right, guys. What did you pick scores?
Oh, sorry. I said 31-10 Bills.
31-10 Bills.
27-24 27-23 Eagles.
Ooh, okay.
So we're kind of mirroring each other.
Yeah. All right.
Keeping it
Well,
interesting.
let's have some fun. I just worry about that Eagles. The Eagles defense did not look good last week, and now that they lost Derek Barnett, so I'm just a little bit lower on them.
Understandably so. Well, hoping for another AJ Brown explosion for selfish fantasy purposes as well. So.
And Justin Jefferson.
Yeah. Fantasy content.
All right, guys. Appreciate it. We will see you for our OT episode on Thursday to give our picks, and then back next Monday, 4 p.m. See you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.